Web3 world. So welcoming Tushar Nadkarni from Celsius, Mara Schmidt from Coinbase, Vanessa is still missing, but she will hopefully join, Victor Busson from Taurus, and the panel is going to be moderated by Velian Sony from Coin Tribune. So how to you guys?
Test. Yeah. You hear me? Good. Hello, everyone. So for today's panel, let's first briefly introduce each of you. Tushar?
Yeah, so I'm Tushar Nadkarni. I'm the Chief Growth and Product Officer at Celsius. So if you think through Celsius, we're a cryptocurrency platform. We offer both centralized finance, decentralized finance chains through Celsius X, our product. We have 1.7 million users on our platform, and we manage somewhere in the range of $23 billion in assets. And we operate out of the US, but we're a global company.
Victor.
Okay, so on my side, I'm Victor. I'm the CMO and taking care of partnership at Taurus. So what we do is actually we enable banks to manage any digital assets, so any in capital letters, meaning cryptocurrencies, tokenized assets, and digital currencies. We have like 60% market share in Switzerland, and we also are the leader in Europe.
Wonderful. What about you, Mara?
Awesome. My name's Mara Schmid. I'm the head of sales at Coinbase Cloud. Coinbase Cloud is Coinbase's developer platform. We power a full stack technology suite for developers, startups, corporates, Fortune 500 companies. So we power some of the world's leading businesses in the space today across a fully diversified product suite.
So as you can see, we are with actors that is bringing Web2 company to Web3 and helping mass adoption, either by UX-friendly based products or either helping people to get to crypto. So the first question I want to ask you is like, what are the trends that you're observing inside of your business around the mainstream adoption of crypto?
Happy to get us started. So I think there's one massive trend. We'll see it in a variety of different forms. We've seen developer growth hockey stick. Right, between last year and this year, for anyone who's led the Electric Capital report, most builders in Web3 are actually new to Web3. So that's the first part. We've seen incredible growth in the amount of people who are actually building Web3, right? The products that end up getting users on board to actually transition to this new paradigm. We've seen the same thing actually happen on the venture capital side. So we had $25 billion in investments last year that went into blockchain startups across the world. That's an 8-fold increase, actually, year on year. So we're not just seeing companies entering the space, innovating on kind of the core technology and advancing the technology itself. We're also seeing a massive shift in Web2 companies transitioning into Web3. So for everyone who's been following the news, you'll see news about companies like Stripe, companies like Twitter, really trying to, transition their business models, their core capabilities and expertise into the Web3 space. So I think really a massive, shift in what we've seen in terms of adoption over the last few years.
If I can add to that, so I completely agree with a lot more developers in the space. The way we've thought about trends, there's 3 core trends that we're seeing, and since this is a product strategy discussion, I'll try to frame them in the sense of product. So the first trend we're seeing is product needs to be a lot more catered to the kinds of customer segments that we are getting. So for example, a retail product should look like it's created for retail users, not just retail crypto users, but retail users that may be in Web 2.0, high class, ease of experience, simple onboarding, all of those things. Then the second one is an institutional grade product. So institutionals, corporates, even in certain cases, they'd be like family offices or high net worth, super important for them to have features that are important for them to manage multiple clients. And so from a product strategy standpoint, we're starting to see almost a forking of the product from retail type of product to an institutional product. And then finally, the third category on types of customers is partner products. Initially, what we used to call as like quote unquote API program, that is now become much more sophisticated into an entire full suite of partnerships programs, because the types of partners are getting sophisticated, their needs are getting sophisticated, the API hooks that are required need to be able to follow that. So that's the first trend we are seeing. The second trend that we're seeing is the interfaces where most people in product would, in crypto, would just get a hall pass, for the lack of a better term, which is to say, look, it's crypto, it doesn't have to be a seamless experience, it can be super clunky, no one cares, just keep adding features to it. I think now with mass adoption, or at least like adoption of retail and institutional adoption, people are demanding more and more for the experience in the product to be seamless, the UI to be seamless. So we're starting to see a deviation of what you would call a set of features to actually have a seamless user experience, which you can call product, not an amalgamation of features. So that's the second piece that we're seeing. And then the third final piece that we're seeing in terms of adoption is a really heavy focus and an intentional investment in risk and security. So you'll see a lot more. This entire product in the crypto world works on one baseline, and that's trust. In a permissionless, decentralized world, if you don't have trust, you're essentially missing the key piece of what you need to do. And that's the investment in risk and trust features. That's the third piece that we're seeing.
No, and to echo what Tusha was saying, so while Celsius is more retail to institutional, we have a bit different approach. It will be more institutional to retail. So the way we are framing things at Taurus is that we really start with banks. So we are seeing new business segments. So the way to really come back to the question is the trend around crypto adoption. We are seeing actually new business segments and new use cases. Okay, so in the case of banks, it's an existing segment. So cryptocurrencies, they were willing to add more cryptos. But we are seeing actually a big surge in demand regarding tokenized assets. Think tokenized debt, tokenized equity, tokenized real estate. So it's all about private asset digitization. And so this is the first segment. The second segment, which is a bit a consequence of this tokenization, is what we are seeing with SMEs. So the big advantage of Switzerland is its regulation. So since February 2021, actually, there was a Swiss distributed ledger technology law, which recognized blockchain as a legal tender to host titles and security token. And this is a massive catalyst, because what we are seeing is actually SMEs, so startup, high growth companies, but not only crypto, like food tech, something totally broader and different, like real startup that has nothing to do with Web3, that starts to get this shareholder economy vision. This really, I'm sharing the success with all the community-owned type of business to create afterwards massive network effect, because basically your company is successful, you tokenize its shares, and then basically you reward the community itself, which is the full point of the Web3.
So what you mean is, like, right now, even Web2 company start to use Web3, but not as a Web3 company, just like a product and a leverage for their businesses.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, so this is a second vertical that we're seeing. And then obviously, but it's the same thing that we are seeing with corporates. So large companies like in France, CAC 40. We are seeing more and more luxury players. We are seeing more and more new entrants willing to go after NFTs. Basically, NFTs, from my point of view, is really something that goes beyond cryptocurrencies, because you have an emotional attachment to your image. So it's an even more powerful tool to create community and bonding with a brand. So ultimately, what marketeers, I'm taking my Procter & Gamble hat right now, because I worked 9 years at Procter & Gamble in brand management. You want to touch the heart and mind of your consumer. As a brand, you want to interact and tell your stories new ways. So that's how basically NFT will be a very strong and powerful tool of tapping and getting closer to your community.
I kind of agree fully with you, because today NFT, or even on the side, like not financial asset anymore. They feel like a new marketing tool to bring Web2 people. Because nowadays, everybody know about NFTs, even in the mainstream world. So maybe Vanessa, you want to kick in and give us your thoughts about your observation of the big trends that is bringing mass adoption in crypto.
Yeah, so I think NFTs, as you've said, is sort of the killer app that makes everything available and tangible for the general consumers. But I think the big trend that I see, it's sort of mass adoption is also in terms of how much money has flowed into the space this year. If I'll take the VC perspective. If you look at how much VC funds have raised this year, it's really impressive. I don't think anyone has ever seen that in Web2. And we're still deploying a lot of money, even though it feels like a little bit like crypto winter. And we still believe very strongly in the teams. And I think we'll see more teams focusing on product market fit. And that's something we try to help as much as possible for the companies to understand that, the first wave of crypto companies built for developers. So it was a developer to developer experience. The second was for financial institutions. And then now the third one is large consumers and massive retail adoption. And those are different talents and different strategies when you build a product, depending on who your audience is, and different scales. So I think it's a really exciting time to see this confluence of Web2, Web3, and then the mass retail adoption.
You want to go on?
Yeah, actually, to add to that, one of the things that's been really, really interesting to see over the last few years is actually how much innovation potential all of these primitives unlock, right? NFTs are really a primitive, right? Whether you use them for brand engagement, for non-fungible asset issuance, they're foundational, right? And we kind of saw the same thing with the implementation of stablecoins, and we're seeing the same thing happening on the privacy layer, and even the scalability layer that is even making it possible for us to get to this critical adoption mass and the scale that we need in order to continue evolving the ecosystem and industry and bringing the next few billion users into the space.
You were speaking about involving institutional actors into our space, but the fact is, like, when you are for Web2, as an institutional actors and you want to go to Web3, you don't have stop loss. The moment you go to Web3, you cannot go back. So for you today, what are the challenges that Web2 company need to go for to enter the space in the best way possible?
So I can try to start on this one. The way we articulate a bit, at least at Taurus, but it's a generic definition of the term. So Web2, from my point of view, is like the subscription economy. So you subscribe to Netflix, Spotify. You have a community management, which is more passive. So you need to acquire users and then make sure that they don't give you bad reviews. So you maintain them happy as much as you can. Ultimately, when it comes to Web3, it's all about basically, the shareholder economy. Driving engagement, direct engagement with the community. And the main challenge is that from a marketing point of view, I can just give you an example. Traditional marketing is you do paid marketing a lot, you paid Google, you paid, voilà. And what if you are shifting all the money, so basically not to agencies but to your community. So to do via their house, via the tokens. There are many, leveraging the power of the community can be something very, very strong. And one of the barriers that I think no one is ready to do that. Only a new player, only a newcomer will be able to shift media money to really start and deliver with the company itself.
Yeah, but there is a big point in what you're telling. That's the mindset of us people from the crypto space. But like telling to institutional people, if you want to do marketing, you're going to give money to your community. That don't make sense in their mind. So does someone can tell us, like, how can we bring them to our new paradigm? That's the big question.
So on that point, we most of us, I guess, operate in the financial space of Web3 and Web 2.0, and I think the way we think about this, just in terms of, again, bringing the discussion back to product, the way we think about it from just a product development, product strategy standpoint is, rather than making the distinction and putting a Chinese wall between Web 2.0 and Web 3.0, we actually think about the bridge and the seamless transition between both, and the ability to give freedom to the user to operate between those two spaces. So if you think about our world, finance, having a seamless bridge between centralized finance and decentralized finance, I think, is quite important. That's where a focus of our company, Celsius, has been. And then when you take the best of what you know of Web 2.0, the best of what you know of Web 2.0 is seamless experiences, easy onboarding, high-class UI, easy customer experience, right? You take that onto the Web 3.0. On the Web 3.0 world, you have to bring all of the practices that you need there onto the Web 2.0 in your entire product development process. What that means is it's a completely new world. There is no playbook for this world. No one has. We are like people here at the conference. We're the people that are actually developing the playbook that maybe half a decade down the line, people might be saying this is how you build product in Web 3.0. So we're writing it as we go ahead. And then if you think about those issues, iterative product strategy is the most effective that we found, right? So don't try to go in and go into this super analysis mode and like go into a closed room and come out with this beautiful product or beautiful baby that you want to like show the world. Just come in with your first product, iteratively take signals from the market and keep developing it and keep your features out. That's what we've seen works the best. So it's melding Web 3.0, Web 2.0, and taking the best of both, and then making the bridge between DeFi and CeFi seamless.
So Mara, so innovation with Coinbase, we know now we also do NFTs. We were speaking about this before. How this challenges because leveraging NFTs, actually you're bringing people from Web 2 that could be company, but they can also be IP. So in this vision of product, what is the best leverage when you speak to those people you're bringing to the space that make them tick and say, all right, I want to go now?
So just to comment on kind of the previous topic as well, we talk to corporates, institutions, builders every single day. And what is actually really difficult and what I think is still the main challenge is actually building on Web3. It requires expertise, it requires technology, it requires an understanding of the nuances of different blockchains, and truthfully, the multi-chain universe is not near, it's actually here. So these things are really, really difficult, especially if you want to go and deploy, a use case that's suited to your customer base and that's suited to your business. Until today, really, there hasn't been any out-of-the-box solutions. You want to build a payments product. Is there an API you can plug into? You want to roll out, an NFT solution. Are you going to build your own wallet? Right? So all of these things have actually, over the last few years, massively evolved. It's actually the core of what Coinbase Cloud is really, focused on doing, is providing a core suite of capabilities so that developers can actually go and focus on building. Right? And bringing utility and value to their own businesses and to the consumers that they service. So
you're actually empowering Web3 builders to move forward so that we have more builders also for mainstream adoption then.
Yeah, and I kind of see it this way, right? We can call them Web 2 builders going to Web 3 or Web 3 builders. In the end, we don't call a company an internet company anymore. We just call it a company that happens to run on the internet. And tomorrow we'll call companies running on Web 3 rails just companies because they'll all be plugging into it, right? So for us, it's really kind of the breadth of the spectrum that we support, whether it's a super crypto native audience, we work with protocol teams to make sure that we really, enable the ecosystems of builders that, are starting to proliferate on top of them, but also companies that are, mega giants inside of what we call the Web 2 or incumbent world, that are leveraging their strengths, their capabilities, and their reach, to lift, their users and their consumer bases into the Web3 opportunity space.
So is also all of you has like strategy of empowering, like, as you say, Web 2, Web 3, finally it's like just one big space. Everything is going to be the same at the end. So we really like to make the difference. But that's all about this speak. So how we bring it together. So can you please just give me each of you one use case of how you're empowering this mass adoption unity? Let's say unity, one world.
So I can start with that. One of the main barriers that people have is Web 2 users is honestly a non-custodial wallet is a nightmare. You need to download, you go on Chrome, you download your MetaMask. You need to write your 12-word or 24-word seed private key. You don't know where to store it. You are scared because if you lose it, you're done. Then after you say, oh, fuck, I need to buy some ETH because I can't do the transaction. Then I pay my transaction. I'm stuck. I'm getting stuck. There is some bottlenecks. Basically, it doesn't pass because I didn't put enough gas. So there are a number of barriers for a random or a generic user to get in, which is a nightmare. What we do at Taurus and the full approach is really more of a custodial approach as a first step towards Web3. For instance, if I'm making very simple, it's that ultimately, as a user, I just want to create a wallet, to tap my address, my email address. Okay, so victor.busson, whatever. And then I have directly a wallet which is associated to this email address. Okay, Ethereum, Tezos, whatever the blockchain is. But I don't need to know there is a wallet. But after, by baby steps, what we can give is give the possibility to the user actually to withdraw the token to a non-custodial wallet. So you start as an experience seamless. You just get your coins, but then you have the possibility afterwards to withdraw them. And regarding banking clients and even after corporate and all this approach is to really have those baby steps of education so that people are getting more and more comfortable with the tool itself.
I think that's a big question rising right now because institutional people in their contability, they don't want to have ETH. They want to have euros. So when you go through a custodial wallet, a market maker or broker that is able to get your crypto and change it into fiat, they are happy.
So I just interrupt because this is a very true, fun story because we have a bank, actually a systemic bank in Switzerland, who didn't want to do anything to do with crypto. So they want to tokenize assets, okay? But to tokenize assets, you need to interact with Ethereum. You need to buy gas to buy Ethereum, but they don't want this on the balance sheet. So at Taurus, we also built kind of a tool, so basically like a gas station that prevent basically the institutions from interacting directly with Ethereum. So basically we will be like the proxy, but then they can still deploy their smart contract and then issue tokens on the blockchain. So without touching anything with gas.
Yeah, the way we think about helping through adoption is really starting rather than starting from here are all the companies within the crypto space. Here are all the companies that are solving the finance or financial services problem. We think about this as like where does adoption need to come from? So it really needs to come from traditional finance. So if we start saying traditional finance, which is all of the banks that most of you have your fiat currency with. There's a huge gap between there and jumping to complete DeFi waters on Web 3.0. And what we've said is like any way that we can solve that problem and bridge the gap between the traditional finance into DeFi, even if that means there's a long station or stopping point between centralized finance, that's the way that we'll play our role in getting through that. So the simple way of thinking about this is our centralized finance solution has things that people are used to, which is, oh, I get interest in my bank. You get rewards on our CFI platform at Celsius, right? You have a credit card. You can take a loan at 1%, right? These are things that people are used to, or you can trade, you can swap between one cryptocurrency to the other. People are really used to doing those things in the Web 2.0 in the traditional finance world, right? Where you have fiat currency. So anywhere where you can have a nice, easy on-ramp of fiat currency into centralized finance, where you get access to the same services that you're used to, you're just now getting those access to the services in the crypto world. When you're ready, now you can get access to the DeFi world, where now you're like, oh, there are several people that we call DeFi curious, right? So they're in the centralized world of finance. Now you can move them into the DeFi world with things like staking, things like NFTs. And that's, it takes a while to get there, but if you're really looking for adoption without pushing people to adopt, adoption will naturally happen, is by taking all the friction points away and getting them to something that they're familiar with, right? And I'm not talking about the people in this room. People in this room are much more, how shall I say, literate about, finance in general, traditional finance, centralized finance, and Web 3.0. I'm talking about mass adoption, making it familiar to them, and then just slowly moving them into the crypto world. That's the way that we play a role. And then that translates to our partner products as well, which is We have our mission of bringing the next 100 million people onto financial freedom. We don't have to do it ourselves, putting a Celsius storefront and having every single customer come through the front. We can enable that through our partner program, right? And so making simple partnerships products, which enables developers, other startups to play in this world as well through the products that we've created, just having those products completely democratized for the users that they bring on.
Seems pretty clear. Maybe Vanessa now, as a fund, can you tell us what you feel that is like the biggest challenge for developers in the Web3 industry to create this decentralized finance in a UX, UI way? Because we can say one point, in the crypto space, we are really good in the tech, but we're not really good in sales and marketing, UX and UI. That's the fact. So what's your point on that?
And so I think it's related to the point that I was really talking about, is that initially Web3 was developer to developer experience. And so with a kind of lack of understanding of like the mainstream adoption. And I think I'm going to introduce another jargon in our conversation, but the VCs talk about Web 2.0, Web 2.5, which is a little bit what we have today on this panel, which is all the companies which are a little bit centralized but give you access to the decentralized world. And this is really critical in our world today in order for people to feel comfortable with that on-ramp, with that experience, with the security that comes with it. So think about OpenSea also in the NFT world and things like that. And it really is what is going to drive mass adoption and what is going to be very successful right now. I think when we take to the VC world and we see a decentralized world coming in, these are the on-ramps to this decentralized world. And for people who create all these decentralized protocols, they come from the open source world. So their vision is something completely different than user experience. It's about everyone being able to contribute as a developer or other to an open source project, which is owned by everyone, which benefits everyone, and which is powered by token economics. So when you think about token economics, it's the new user acquisition tools. It's the new CAC. It's the way you create the incentives for people to use your protocol is really how you should be thinking about customer acquisition. And it's still maybe a little bit techie and a little bit removed from the experience of people. Not everyone wants to get on Discord to access a protocol and get yield. So there's a big gap still. And I think these guys on this panel are filling that gap in a very forceful way and really is empowering the next billion user of Web3.
And so Mara, with Coinbase Cloud, what are the biggest barriers you feel with the developers you're empowering?
I think kind of along Vanessa's lines, right? It's the challenge of taking the Web3 stack and building on top of it. We can call it Web 2.5, but it's really the bridge, right? The connective tissue between crypto-native actions, crypto-native protocols, and utility that you can externalize to a user base. The other thing is people want to build with reliable and security-first products. And that's really, really important. We've gone through many iteration cycles in crypto, and we all read the news. So we've seen a lot of, kind of the implications of building with an early technology stack. So I think that's one of the things that, with Coinbase and our approach to security-first mindsets, right? People really, want to rely and lean on. We want to make sure that, when you're building, the products you build are safe, they're reliable, they're secure, and so you can focus on building an intuitive interface, an intuitive on-ramp, providing great products and providing a good service.
No, and also, well, I'm not at all a developer, but from what I'm hearing when I'm talking to our developers, it's really like when you go granular, because what we do at Taurus is we master the full technology stack. So we do software, hardware, distributed ledger technology, the cryptography, the DevOps. And each time, even when we look, one of the most complicated parts is really to go into the smart contract level and basically do the integration regarding the tokenization template. So basically, so that in our approach, we end up smart contract agnostic. Everyone can do ERC20 tokenization. You just issue a token. But the difficulty is after, if you want to be agnostic and do whatever we want, so that basically you lift again this barrier to entry. Basically, anyone can wants to upload its own smart contract with its own local regulation. That's where it makes us sweat, basically. And this is where we spend the time, and that would be a real pain point to really get on those smart contracts.
I fully agree with you, Victor. I think one thing to add, which is actually, without getting too technical here, when a blockchain launches, there is a blockchain. If you're building on that blockchain, you need to connect to it. To connect to it, you need infrastructure, right? That is a huge pain point for everyone who's building on new blockchains, period. It's almost like saying, when I'm trying to build a website to post my blog, I need to go quickly run a server at my house to power that, right? That's kind of the phase that new blockchains find themselves in. So I think infrastructure is a huge piece. You'll see protocol teams prioritizing early stage partners like Coinbase Cloud to do that with them early on, to ensure that they don't have to spend their time setting up servers and they can go spend their time building things that are meaningful.
I wanted to ask you a last question for this panel. As you say, there is a bridge going on from Web 2 to Web 3, but also from Web 3 to Web 2. Why? Because let's say Web 2 wants the innovation and all the leverage that we can bring, but Web 3 need the awareness, right? That's what we're speaking about, right? We need the awareness of mass adoption with this marketing leverage. That could be IP, that could be institutional, that could be football clubs. So question is like the egg or the chicken dilemma. What should come first? Mass adoption or builders? Because if we have mass adoption but not enough builders, the innovation could not scale at the same time. But if we have only builders and no user, it's useless. So each of you, one by one, please, can you give me your response to this dilemma?
Yeah, so for me, I won't even take a mediocre position on this. It's so clear in my mind what this needs to be, at least for me, or for us, is that you actually need to have something to offer people before you get people there. So think about this like, so let's take both scenarios. You have people coming in with a subpar product or not enough supply of products or features or even a killer product. And they come in there and it's basically crickets. There's no one in the room and they've arrived. It's like, what do we do now? So you've basically got the demand in and you haven't met that with supply. So it's so clear, like in terms of developers, like developers come first. And when I say first, it needs to be a little more sequence, which is as you're developing product, you start getting your marketing, your awareness, your customer acquisition strategy, your growth strategy in place. But I think when you get sometimes in situations like this, especially in a world where people are, your UI, your UX, your customer experience, speaks a lot to the trust that they will place in you. Because they, at the end of the day, whether it's like crypto, fiat currency, whatever they're doing, they're putting their own like financial XYZ, financial assets, let's call it, in your hands. So they're going to, a lot of the perception is going to depend on their experience on your platform. So the whole concept of MVP, right, minimum viable product in this world, ends up changing because you have to have at least a solid enough product for people to come in. But you, again, I said this before as well, you can't be in a room and completely have this beautiful, super seamless product. By the time you build that, you probably missed the trend or you missed the people that wanted that product in the first place. So it is a chicken and egg, sure, but I would always lean towards having something in place before you get people into the product.
Okay, guys, so we could still have time for question. Can you just answer? Builders or mainstream?
No, it would be a bit more. So for me, it's a no-brainer again. It's builders. I won't hesitate a single second, but basically with a specific methodology so that actually you can also drive mass adoption. So builders, by adopting kind of the code of the DAOs, because I really believe that ultimately, when you start, you need a centralized team. Okay, you can't start from nothing. So you need a team of founders. Then you need to you can tap into your community. So you can ask your community to actually elect some council members. So, and then it will facilitate the contribution between them. Then you can leverage your community to tap into task force. So that's to say, please create me a creative. please, well, can you reach out to this firm because maybe you have some contacts. So I would really not underestimate this approach, but you need to build with the right people and with the community, and bricks by brick, community after community, basically you really continue enlarging. So builders.
Mara, your choice.
I'm right there with you. I think it's immensely important. If we don't empower builders to build better products, they're not building better products to provide better interfaces and experiences to bring users on board. So that's definitely my viewpoint. I think it's interesting because even if you look at Coinbase, right, we've really taken, 8 years ago, or even a little bit longer at this point, there was one superstar use case: buy and hold crypto, right? That was the pre-utility phase. That was before the retail and the institutional and the corporate market really started innovating on top of the technology stack to enable payment use cases, brand engagement use cases, and everything else. And I think especially as we've realized and recognized as a product-led company, the amount of work that has to go into building a great experience, building a secure experience, right? What we're recognizing, kind of similar to what Tushar said, we want to take that knowledge, we want to take that expertise, and we want to empower other people to leverage it, to continue building.
And you, Vanessa?
Yeah, so I see it, always want to invest in builders that solve problems, right? And then when you're in that sweet spot, sometimes there's issues about how you communicate about that. But if you're really solving a problem, you'll find some product market fit, and you'll get feedback and iterate on your product. So I don't see it as like, oh, you have a product and then you do the adoption. You really have to build a product with your clients, with the people you're solving problems for. And I want to take a step back to think about the evolution of like the layer ones and how people are engaging, because you've seen like all the previous projects at the time of Ethereum, etc. Like we're just focused on the tech, building on community. And now we've seen, other strategies and other playbooks to drive adoption, even between, with developers. And I think that's super interesting. And I think, each strategy should learn from each other because they're all additive. And so having that marketing, having that buzz, and then bringing in people, and then it works, it doesn't work, but then it might work at the end, is something interesting, and it works. And I think, we'll see in a couple of years where we all end up. But at the end of the day, we're bringing in more people, we're bringing in more developers, we're bringing more eyeballs on these products and services, and I think it's going to be a snowball effect.
Thank you. So now if you have some question, that's the moment.
Can you hear me? Yes. Do you think the attempt of Web2 companies to jump into crypto, for example, adding NFTs to their product, is going to eventually pay off? Or do you think Web3 native companies have something in their mentality or their mindset which, is a fundamental advantage? So who do you think is going to be the true winner of this Web3 paradigm shift? Thank you.
So I'm thinking about innovation and what types of innovations are there. So there's creative innovation and really innovation that replaces the existing system. And I think we're going to be in that paradigm shift at some point. So yes, some Web2 companies are going to adopt some Web3 tools, but that's not where the innovation and the new business model are going to come from. You'll have to look at those in order to see the future.
I may just say a little point about this. It's like right now,
we might not all agree.
Web2 company, they have like 4 reasons to do NFT actually. First, they just want to do some cash. They didn't understand the ecosystem. Second one, they want to deliver a new product and do meta branding. Third one, connecting new relations with the customer. And fourth one, infrastructure.
Yeah, so to answer that question just much more pointedly is rather than thinking about whether this will pan out or not, I think it's important to understand why they're doing it. So there's usually 2 reasons broadly, and I'm generalizing, but there's usually 2 reasons for people to do this, right? are you really just sprinkling a little Web3 on top of what you're doing, or are you doing it with some intent? So the two reasons are you are missionary or you're mercenary, right? So if you're missionary, you have a specific mission of your company, and Web 3.0 is going to help you get to that mission. That makes you missionary. And then in situations like this, when the dry powder runs out, when milk and honey is gone, you're still back to in service to the mission, and you will continue to stay in Web 3.0, and you'll grind it out, and you'll keep iterating on your product till you get product market fit. If you're mercenary, you'll get the initial cash that's available, and then at the end of the day, you're not innovating because you really didn't have a reason to be in Web 3.0. You're just sprinkling some Web 3.0 fairy dust on top of your product. And in those cases, it's pretty clear you are going to fail. It's just when, it's not if.
Yeah, I fully agree with that commentary. I think it's almost like asking the question 20 years ago if an internet company would be the world's largest video streaming company. No, actually it was Netflix, and they were also running video stores. And it aligned with their mission, right? Which is providing access to, DVD, video cassette streaming, providing access to viewing movies. And the technology of the internet actually just gave them a platform to accelerate that vision. Right? Then we look at something else which actually came out of the internet space. Let's talk about, Meta, right? A social network that lives in the digital world was a new use case that was born out of this technology. And I think that's actually the exact same thing we'll see happening in Web3. We'll see companies with missions that will accelerate their mission through the technologies that are going to be available. And we're going to see entirely new use cases that are going to be enabled with companies that are going to lead the charge building natively inside of them.
In 1 minute, because we are over time. The answer for me is very simple. I think that Web3 people will be more hungry to success. I think there is really a cultural shift, which is very deep happening right now between even traditional finance and crypto world. Even if we will be bridging, I think that the intent and the sense of purpose for people already in the space will be even higher, and that's why my deep belief will be Web3 will be the one winning overall.
Thank you, everyone. Please make some noise for the panel.